Ubel's amazing profile consists of high emotional, high cognitive empathy, with genius level intuition, and somehow can detach herself from those cultural moral norms, like yeeting people. In self-defense, she understands others' moral boundaries, feels comfortable with violence, but knows when to restrain herself, and isn't actually as compulsive as someone with the profile as she would have. A lot of Ubel's character in the Foundation Festival arc is revealing more and more of Ubel's understanding, from her intuitiveness to her outright figuring out not only how her own powers work, but others. She consistently relies on Mage to figure things out, but as we can see in chapter 143, she's on the verge of going beyond what we thought she was capable of. There is a ton of evidence that is pointing us to this direction, like in the fight against Noi, and when she was tied to the tower with rope with Mage. You can even say that Ubel's want to find her older sister, as the privileged spell she asked Serie for is one that has gone beyond our own imagination and expectation, and not just Serie's. But before we get there, it's an entirely new year, and the Frieren Manga hiatus continues. Abe Tsukasa and Yamada Kanehito are recovering ever so slowly from the intense schedule of a serialized mangaka. A new year means a new updated script of the Foundation Festival arc that gets delivered to the great Mage Serie. The Feet Goddess! Is she going to get yeeted? I don't know, but they should yeet Ubel. There is a clear progression and crescendo to what Kanehito is leading us on with Ubel's character. Her backstory with her sister has yet to be explored, and seems to be more of a vehicle to really describe how terrifying her abilities are, and what if she did understand how her powers work. How much more dangerous would that make her? Let's do a quick rundown of this maniacal intuitive genius that looks like she might be understanding more and more of the logic behind her powers and how others work. Although poor Mage might have called her dumb here, she's way more cunning and intelligent than we think, and it's all coming to a massive overcoming of an obstacle here with the shield. A physical one. So when Ubel first burst onto the scene, she was on her way to Allburst to participate in the first class mage exam when a couple of bandits. When Kraft saved the bandits' lives from Ubel, where she was traveling from, it was from within Grafkranat's domain, near where Frieren told one of the 7 demon sages to yeet herself. This isn't the only time Frieren told someone to yeet themselves. Wow, you're an elf. Wow, you're a killer. Okay. Self-defense with a huge red flag. A major theme of the first class mage exam was about all the modern day mages lacking experience, although many are very talented. It's the reason why Frieren only really taught Fern basic spells, like seeing through clothes, and how she was able to defeat Serie, who is supposed to be the strongest mage out of everyone. As the granddaughter of learning, this inexperience includes our green-haired, somewhat insane friend here. We can assume that all these characters during this exam will get more experience and get stronger from it. What's interesting about Ubel's character is that she tightropes this fine line between absolute murderous maniac and one that doesn't actually cross over this path into becoming a complete sociopathic serial killer. And much of that has to do with her empathy. It is her superpower, which leads her to be highly intuitive and highly knowledgeable about people. And it all culminates within her capability to copy other mages' power. If you remember her battle against Ubel, she notices right away that he had the ability to just yeet Mage, Fern, and herself with Sorganel. If he could have just ensnared them, the other two could have just finished them off. However, he let them off to just blackmail Ubel instead. She was able to deduce everything Ubel was doing and ultimately came to the conclusion that Ubel's Sorganel had a flaw. He has to see all of you in order to use it. Her ability to adapt and understand the situation is way more advanced than what one may assume about her due to her chaotic sensibilities. Both had the opportunity to yeet each other early on, but neither actually fell through with it. We can chalk this up to Ubel's side of being self-serving to open up the opportunity to empathize with Weirbo to copy his Sorganel ability. It's obviously a risky proposition and one where she understood Weirbo just needed some time to come to the conclusion of yeeting her. It's that humanity that he was holding on to that helped Ubel empathize with them. Yeeting women and children is something during wartime one might ultimately have to do, and it's that humanity that Weirbo holds onto that made him hesitate a bit before attempting to yeet her, which ultimately led to Fern saving her. Once Fern lied to Weirbo about yeeting the most powerful Serie, he called it quits because there is no need to unnecessarily kill each other. As Ubel points her staff at him, once again, her ability to see through Fern's lie and hold herself back from yeeting Weirbo, especially later on when we realized she copied Sorganel. Disposing of him would have made a lot of sense here. With Fern being there and Weirbo actually making a good point, she restrained herself. This starts to become a pattern that she mirrors, like in her fight against Noi and when she escaped. Much of Ubel's intrigue and dialogue can also be very ambiguous when you go back and read what she had to say. She even called Megane an imposter. Later on, Megane reveals that she tricked Ubel, that his real self was never in Albers. But it seems like Ubel already had some kind of inklings about him being fake in many ways, either due to his clones, his personality, his abilities, or some combination of all the above. This takes us to the downtime between exams 1 to 2, where Ubel straight up just confronts Lan in a rather ambiguous situation. This is actually like the early genesis of how they are both actually not incompatible, as Serie puts it later. Lan already has a good read and a profile of what kind of person Ubel is, who doesn't trust anyone, and actually had his eyes on her during her fight with Weirbo. She explains her empathizing phenomena that she can copy mage abilities if she empathizes with them. Early on, she mentions that she believes a mage's abilities are tied to their life and character, so it only benefits her to get to know people even more, in which she starts to. Megane realizes even more that Ubel uses magic using her senses without fully understanding how it works. Solitaire during the Golden Land arc mentions how this is normal for humans, and even Frieren displayed during that arc to be so with Undoing Dia Golds. Ubel is clearly trying to get to know Megane for the reason to steal his cloning capabilities, but is it truly the sole reason she wants to get to know him? That's the mystery and the ambiguous nature of Ubel's character. Maybe there is some truth to her having somewhat a romantic interest in him, but at the same time, she clearly wants to use him. During the second exam, she was able to understand what kind of person Lan is on a deeper level, but that still may not be enough to copy his clone ability. What happens next when she runs into Sense's clones is one of the biggest core themes of Frieren. When she accidentally yeeted Berg, the first class mage, during an exam 2 years prior, she cut him like it was nothing. Multiple times she mentioned just visualizing being able to cut anything. It's the thought of the defensive barriers that becomes the obstacle. But with Ubel, she is somehow able to look past it and maybe in a way, not even acknowledge it. An analogy here could be like being ignorant to your opponent's prowess and abilities. Knowing that Berg and Zinza has amazing defensive magic that can block almost anything naturally becomes that mental barrier. But Ubel is able to skip all that and just visualize the simple nature of being able to cut a person. This is where Zinza realizes that she can't beat Ubel at all, which was a core theme of the arc, that everyone has a weakness and that fighting isn't just purely about strength. But Ubel defeating Sense's clone like it was nothing, it established that visualization, not having to fully understand how magic works, and thinking outside of the box are key proponents of not only Ubel's genius, but core themes of Frieren throughout the series. Let's remember that Serie passed Ubel without hesitation. These moments around her are so mystifying because of not knowing what she is truly thinking, her real intent, and it's the fact that she is pretty much labeled a genius at this point by Sense. The ambiguous nature of her character and her situation around her by the arc's end is a memorable one, and one where we won't see her again until the Foundation Festival arc. Let me reiterate that Ubel's profile consists of high emotional, high cognitive empathy, with genius level intuition, and can detach herself from moral and ethical norms. She understands people's boundaries and knows when to restrain herself, even when she toys with the chaotic compulsion of going crazy. So when it comes to the Foundation Festival arc, we start to learn what is actually very terrifying about where Ubel's character is going when it comes to her powers of empathy and visualization that breaks all normal boundaries. She has a high aptitude to break down the entire situation, like against Noi with land. When Megane got hit with like an entire building, she was able to constantly check on him before making the decision to eventually engage against Noi. Although Lan later scolded her a bit that if she just waited for him to clone himself again, they could have escaped without fighting and, getting caught. During the fight and what happens later as she continues to break the entire situation down of Noi's powers at the top of the tower, like with Wirbel, she notices right away what his powers are like and quickly comes to the conclusion that she just needs to defeat him as fast as possible. Right when Ubel attacked Noi, she already noticed that something was off. He uses mana-driven telekinesis, which is a standard attack that uses mass, but his mana and how objects are actually moving are not aligned, leading to how Lan got dunked on by a building. So rather than using mana detection, she relied on her old trusty eyeballs, but was still curious about what abilities he is using. Even when using her Sorganelle, he was still able to use magic somehow, blocking her vision and allowing him to momentarily escape. Ignoring restraining magic. Sound familiar? All this eventually just led to Ubel going blind. Both her eyes and mana detection have been disabled. One might think she would be incapacitated, but she can very much still use her abilities beyond being blind and not sensing mana. What's interesting about this fight is that she is already breaking down much of what Noi can do and what she's able to do. She just lacked the time to analyze it all before being captured. The biggest mystery that came from the situation was whatever that buzzing sound of insects in this bottle, which might be some kind of magical item that allowed him to use magic even when he was trapped by Sorganelle and blinded her mana detection and eyes. This is all building towards a crescendo of what? To figuring out what others' abilities can do and what she can do, and the fact that she doesn't need Megane as a crutch anymore. All of that was displayed here in chapter 131 after Weg tossed Lan and Ubel at the top of this empty tower. Ubel does nothing but ponder over her situation. She can't see, but technically her eyes work. She can't detect mana, but her mental defenses have not been penetrated. The control of her mana in her body has been disrupted, which means she's under the effect of a spell that disrupts her senses. Like that mana telekinesis, what Noi used described by Ubel was actually just basic magic. And before Ubel can come up with a logical conclusion, she leaves that smart guy stuff to Megane. But maybe she is actually pretty smart herself, which continues this teasing of Ubel starting to fully grasp what her true genius is. Flashing back to those sounds of insects when she got blind, it likely has to do with that jar of sparkles that Noi had up his sleeve. Like with Sense's hair and her ability to just ignore defensive magic, she cut the rope that was supposed to stop the both of them from using magic like it was nothing. What Lan ponders here from this spectacular outcome of Ubel still using her magic when she wasn't supposed to be able to, and how she did it, is very intriguing for her next development of her character. It's easy to be affected by a spell that has no form, but magic that takes physical form can be distorted and resisted based on how one imagines it. Ubel has this innate ability and might be getting closer to the principles of how it all works in the no form way and in the physical way. What makes this absolutely terrifying is that Ubel can use Poseidon and cut almost anything no matter what. Ubel can defy the magic restraints from the rope, like how Noi's buzzing of insects' secret ability in a bottle allows him to do as well, which ultimately leads us to the fight against the Shadow Warrior, Routine. Routine uses a physical object like that big shield. Because she needs to see her full body, she can't use Sorganelle. What's puzzling here is that she can't cut the shield. It is the first obstacle we've seen a Ubel where she couldn't cut something that she could visualize that she can. Except mentally, a physical shield is naturally a barrier to this. What we know about Ubel's Recitant is that it has about a 5-meter range. It can cut through all defensive magic that we've seen her be faced with, like with Sense and Berg. Now, if she can cut an entire physical shield, what endless possibilities is she capable of? How far does that actually scale? Noi even teased this here with Weg when she got captured and later shown that she just straight up recited an entire bricked up building. Overall, it is Ubel's intelligence that is vastly creeping up with her intuitive genius. She doesn't need Megane's own genius like she keeps referring to, like in their fight against Iris and Routine. She can fully grasp not only her surroundings, but grasp how other people's powers work. But she understands people and their motivations on a fundamental level. This is where her battle against Routine makes it so compelling for what she is about to do next. Kanehito is teasing that this obstacle in the shield is something Ubel will overcome. Before, she can visualize cutting something that is supposed to be cut, but a shield, that's not supposed to happen. So if she does, how much more dangerous will Ubel be? And how much intellectually aware would this combination of all of her capabilities make her? It appears to me that Ubel is about to go through another massive transformation and it's about to approach another tier danger for a mage.